character death in tabletop role-playing games can be quite a touchy subject, because it honestly depends on the reason why you're playing the game. When I first started playing role-playing games, characters were a dime a dozen. They were little cookie cutter personalities who you just throw into the fray, and I treated them like playing pieces. But as time went on, I began to realise that a lot of these characters that I'd created had personalities, and they had dreams and aspirations, the same way that characters would do in books and novels and films. I did a live stream recently talking about getting emotionally involved with role-playing games, the stories and the setting, and especially the characters. And some of my greatest memories and some of my fondest moments in role-playing have been with characters that lasted quite a long time, and I really enjoy playing. But I have had moments during games, as a player and as a GM, where character death has kind of really rocked the boat. I've lost characters that I've been playing for a long time. There was one character that I've been playing for the better part of 2 years who sadly didn't make it in a game of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. Now, you'd think that in a game of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, you'd expect your character to die at some point, because we were playing first edition, and of course the kill count was quite high. It was quite grim. There's loads of different ways that you could die. If you didn't have a limb lopped off, you'd die from an infection later. All how very real, how very British. But sadly, I've been playing this guy for 2 years, so of course I've gotten attached to him. He died. He didn't die well. He died in a gutter somewhere, and that was doubly annoying. So I think what I'm trying to say is that character death shouldn't be cheap. It shouldn't be just, oh well, what a shame, move on to the next one. You know what I mean? Like, you've got a conveyor belt of characters. I mean, fair dues, if the game's being played that way, if it's that kind of game, then so be it. Or if it's a one shot. I mean, for God's sake, I wrote Those Dark Places, and that game is a death trap to a lot of characters, the way that it's designed, and it's only designed for one shots, so it's trying to emulate those science fiction movies and shows where there is a healthy death count. You know what I mean? I haven't set out to kill the players, but that's the nature of the game. That's the nature of the game that they're playing, and when you go into the game, that's what you expect. But I think there's also there has to be a balance. So if you're going into a long campaign, if I went into a long campaign, I would expect to play a character for a long time. But I wouldn't want to be playing in a long campaign and be playing that character for about 3 years, and then whilst running away from a rabid kobold, I tripped over, fell down a flight of stairs, and broke my neck and died. Now, it's easy to turn around and say that's life, but that's not life. That's just cheap. And you've got to remember you're playing a game. It's not real life at all. So you want to be heroic. You want these moments. And if you do go out, you want to go out big. So what I used to do as GM is, if a character was about to die, I would say to them, these are going to be your last moments. I'd let the hit points run out, so you knew for a fact that was it. It was over. But I'd also say, okay, these are your last moments. What is it you want to do? You've got an action. You've got a couple of actions. Do you want to impart some knowledge? Do you want to die in somebody's arms? Do you want to do a heroic last stand? Their death has to count for something. If you've been playing that character for so long, and then suddenly you just got randomly hit by a lucky roll, and the critical kills you outright in a corridor somewhere, which has happened to me. I've basically been playing this character for months, running down the corridor. Someone took a snapshot, got a lucky critical, killed me. What? Just out of nowhere. And it's frustrating. It's annoying. I've been there, and it's annoying if it's handled cheaply as well. And then just sort of, oh well, move on to the next one. Don't worry about it, John. I'm not saying that you should allow players to mourn their characters. In some ways they will, because you've got to remember, players have created these characters. They put a little bit of their heart in them, put a little bit of themselves into them, and they've been on a long journey with them. So they've put themselves into that character's shoes. And I'll use the analogy again. They've got attached to them the same way you get attached to your favourite TV show character, or your favourite movie character, or your favourite book character. I mean, look at the outcry in shows like Game of Thrones when, like, the Red Wedding happened. You know what I mean? Or when certain characters ended up dying. The outcry is huge. People are devastated, they're anguished by it. So, and that's just as an observer watching a show happen. So as a player who's directly involved with that, it can be a little bit more. So yeah, so I try to make character death. I try to make their deaths mean something. I try not to make it cheap. Unless they're laughing it off and go, actually no, leave it, that's actually quite funny. It's up to the player at the end of the day. That's why I give them that choice. I give them those actions. It makes no difference to the game. The game will then carry on. They'll have to bring in new characters like you should in a role-playing game. But it sort of gives them their moments, and it sort of gives them a moment of closure. It gives them, and also doesn't make their death cheap. And sometimes I've given them the option, and people have done it, and their last action has been to make sure that everybody else is safe. So they've died saving their friends, or they've died passing on an important piece of information. So it's so their deaths can be important if they dramatically and for the game as well. You know what I mean? It makes sense in the game. What I will say to games masters, if you're running a game, is and there's going to be character death, or if there is character death, etc., etc. Just don't laugh, don't smile, don't get smug. Oh, I killed your character. That's a score one. You know what I mean? Character sheets aren't trophies, and they shouldn't be treated as such. Like I say, if you've all sat down at the table beforehand and you've had to create 5 characters because you know it's going to be a bit of a meat grinder, then that's fair enough. That's the kind of game that you're playing. But read the room. Have a chat before the campaign starts, or have a chat before the game starts. Just to have a chat about what kind of game everybody wants, and then character death can then be sort of handled correctly. It's like I say, different people at the table would have different ideas of how they want their characters to be treated upon death. Some people are going to be upset. Some people are going to be annoyed. Like, oh God, I can't believe this. I've got to spend half an hour creating a new character now. Oh God. And then some people just won't care. They go, oh well, that's all right because pull out another character sheet. Actually, here's Fred. And I created him the other night. I had a feeling. You know what I mean? So just read the room. Just get to know your players and read the room. So yeah, character death can be frustrating. It can be annoying. It can be upsetting. It's always down to the individual. Also, character death can be really, really good. It can be really dramatic. It can really set the tone for a game, or set the tone. Or no, it's a bit like the red shirts in Star Trek. You know what I mean? They've got to die to show how serious the situation is. And I've done games beforehand where everybody's been quite lardy-da about the game because they've been breezing encounters. I think it was Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition because everybody's playing superheroes and that. And then suddenly one of the characters dies about 5 games into the very short campaign, and everybody's like, ooh, and start taking things a little bit more seriously, and going into situations and being a little bit more cautious. Because I remember character death was quite prevalent in basic Dungeons and Dragons back in the 80s, so you were a little bit more cautious. You know what I mean? You didn't just go running in swords waving, going, yeah, let's get them, boys. You know what I mean? You had to sort of take a bit of a step back and do a little bit of planning. So that's that basically. Character death. It can be dramatically pleasing, melodrama wise, but just read the room and just make sure that the characters either get a chance to give their character's death some meaning, or they know what they're letting themselves in for. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Thanks for listening. Ta-ra.